The doors of the council archive did not open. They yielded. A deep metallic groan rolled through the hall as ancient plates slid apart, revealing a chamber that hadn't breathed air in centuries. Archivist Valine stepped forward. His four-fingered hand traced the frozen metal veins along the wall, a vault built to hide truth, not preserve it. For 38 standard years, he had studied humanity, their rise from one blue world to a people who touched the stars. Their story defied probability. It defied logic. But Valine no longer believed in randomness. His species, the Kalari, worshipped documentation. He worshipped truth. A council officer behind him whispered, "Archivist, this access is restricted. You will be watched." Valine didn't look back. "I expect nothing less," he replied calmly. "Humanity's sealed logs are vital to the Grand Accord." He stepped inside. Darkness stirred, then ignited. Blue holographic flames rippled to life, casting shifting shadows across walls engraved with ancient Earth warnings. Classified, TWF, Terran War Files. Authorized access only, by order of Earth High Command. Valine's throat tightened. The Council's request had sounded simple, an honest record of every human war. But nothing about humans was ever simple. A presence waited inside. One figure, motionless, broad-shouldered, human. "You're the alien historian," the man said, not a question. Valine inclined his head. "I am Archivist Valine of Kalari Prime." The man didn't bow. Humans rarely did. Admiral Nathan Havelock. Retired, allegedly, a faint smile. "I'm here to make sure you don't misread what you're about to see." The pedestal between them unlocked with a low hum. Dozens of data crystals rose, orbiting like slow moons. Each one carried a symbol, each symbol a species. "None familiar, these civilizations," Valine whispered, "do not exist in our records, and that's the point," Havelock replied. "They don't exist in any records. Erased? Buried." The word chilled the air. Valine lifted the first crystal. A hologram bloomed in the golden world singing with life. Species, the Naroon Unity status, extinct cause, Judgment War. Sealed by Terran Command. Valine's pulse hammered. "This is wrong," he said. "Humanity wasn't expansionist. We have proof." "Proof," Havelock cut in, "of what we allowed you to see." The chamber seemed to shrink. "You're here because peace was signed." Havelock continued. "The Council wants truth, and I want honesty," Valine snapped, surprising himself. "If your people hid atrocities, hiding atrocity isn't always evil," Havelock said softly. "Sometimes it's mercy," Valine stared. "You speak like a zealot?" "No." Havelock's tone dropped to a whisper. Like a witness, the hologram shifted. Now screaming skies. Naroon warships raining plasma over helpless worlds. Armies devouring weaker species alive. They were predators, Havelock narrated. They fed on the innocent. Valine watched cities burn. Children run. Towers collapse, human ships descended, then sleek, black, merciless. A Terran soldier knelt beside a trembling alien child and whispered, "You'll live." "I swear it." Moments later, the sky turned to fire. The Naroon were gone. Valine's knees weakened. "You annihilated them." "They annihilated innocence," Havelock answered. "We ended the option." Silence. Heavy, endless. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Valine asked. Havelock looked up at the ceiling starlight. "Because someone has to stand between monsters and those who still believe in miracles." "You believe in a divine order?" Valine whispered. "When you've survived death enough times," Havelock said, "you stop calling it luck. Someone wanted me to live. Wanted humanity to live." A shiver crawled under Valine's scales. Kalari believed in logic. Humans believed in something else. Something terrifying. Before Valine could speak, alarms screamed through the chamber. "Intrusion alert, Sector 5. Breach red light flooded the room. The pedestal snapped shut, crystals sealing inside armor. Havelock cursed. "They're trying to stop your access." "Who?" Valine demanded. "Those who still fear truth and what happens when it's known." He drew a compact sidearm. "Stay behind me. Why would anyone attack a historian?" Havelock's eyes hardened. "Because knowledge," he said, "is the most dangerous weapon humanity ever made." The vault doors shuddered. Something hammered from the other side. Havelock raised his weapon. "You wanted truth, Archivist." His voice was iron. "Now you'll see why we locked it away." The door buckled. Light burst through the cracks, and for the first time in centuries, the truth fought to be seen. The council's private chamber was still. Archivist Valen stood alone, surrounded by dark screens waiting to awaken. At the center floated a black cube, sealed by Earth's highest command. Humanity's war log, he hesitated. His 4 fingers hovered over the activation mark. Once I open this, I can never go back. Kalari scholars feared emotion. He feared ignorance. Humans had always been a contradiction. Chaos wrapped in faith. To understand them, he would have to see what they had hidden. One file, he whispered. Just one. The cube opened, filling the room with red light. Helios Front. Classified operation. Silence of Helion. Commander, Admiral Nathan Havelock. The playback began. Helion system. Orbit of a dying star. Human ships drifted through shattered asteroids, hulls scarred and engines fading. The fleet had lost everything but will. Inside the flagship TDS Resolute, Admiral Havelock stood over a damaged map display. Blood marked his sleeve. His voice remained calm. We hold here. Commander Rafe, younger and desperate, argued, Sir, the Helions will chase us. We can't outrun them. Havelock's gaze fixed on the burning star outside. Exactly, Rafe frowned. Sir? They think strength is inherited, Havelock said. They've never faced people shaped by struggle. He looked around the bridge, faces hollow with exhaustion. They believe destiny belongs to the powerful. We believe survival is granted to those who fight for others. The words stilled the crew. Even the machine seemed to pause. Valen stopped the recording. These humans, surrounded, broken, still spoke of purpose. His own people believed in reason. Humans believed in meaning, and meaning could move worlds. He resumed the file. The Helion fleet appeared, silver vessels like blades of light. A transmission broke through the static. Terran fleet, surrender! Kneel and we may let your children live. Havelock answered at once. Humanity kneels for no one. Laughter echoed through the channel. You fight for survival. We fight for destiny. Havelock's tone hardened. Destiny isn't taken. It's earned. He turned to his crew. Align the fleet around the star. Power down engines. Rafe stared at him. Sir, are you planning to ignite it? Havelock nodded once. This star has hours left. We'll give it minutes. Someone whispered a prayer. Ya Allah. Guide our hands, Havelock closed his eyes. He already has. Command spread through the ships. Warheads armed. Coordinates locked. The last of humanity braced for silence. Fire. Torpedoes streaked toward the star. A heartbeat later, light consumed the void. The sun collapsed inward, folding space upon itself. On the bridge, the glare turned faces into silhouettes. Havelock stood unflinching. Divine fire, he murmured, and guided by human hands. The star imploded. Radiance swept across the system. The Helion armada tried to flee, but the light outran them all. When vision returned, the sky was empty. Only debris and drifting embers remained. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Commander Rafe exhaled a trembling laugh. Not luck, he said quietly. Someone wanted us to live. Havelock sank into his chair, voice low. Remember the Helions, and not in hatred, but in warning. Evil survives when good men stay silent. The playback ended. Valen stared at the dimmed screen, unable to move. The Helions were gone, erased by a dying sun and human faith. He whispered to himself. They didn't conquer. They sacrificed. The cube flickered with new text. Entry Era 1 unlocked. Additional records 490.99. Valen's pulse quickened. 500 operations. 500 extinctions. Not conquest and judgment. Each war a verdict against those who preyed on the helpless. Each victory a confession written in fire. He pressed a trembling hand to his chest. Gods help us. What have humans done? And then, even softer, what will they do if the darkness returns? The cube dimmed. The chamber was silent again, but the silence no longer felt safe. Valen's reflection hovered in the dark glass before him. His hands trembled, not from fear of the humans, but from what they revealed. 500 war files. 500 civilizations erased. Everything he had studied about humanity was wrong. They weren't random conquerors. They were executioners. Precise, purposeful, relentless, and yet they called it mercy. He touched the cube again. If I stop now, he whispered, then ignorance becomes my crime. The next file opened, war log entry. Farfor non-teen operation. The Abyssal Purge Species. Krilthar Commander. Admiral Nathan Havelock. The projection came alive. Darkness, cold, and pressure. The scene unfolded beneath an alien ocean. A human submarine crept through black water, its hull covered in claw marks that glowed faintly blue. Inside, voices whispered, "Tight, strained human. They're not animals," one said. "They're devils with gills." Commander Havelock leaned over the tactical sphere, face grim beneath the red light. "How many civilians on the colony?" Lieutenant Arden hesitated. 40,000, sir, but we don't think any survived." The room went silent. Then, a metallic bang echoed through the submarine, something slamming against the hull, a scream from below deck. And then nothing. Arden whispered, "Sir, they're boarding us." "Underwater!" Havelock's jaw tightened. "Prepare the sonic charges. No matter what happens when we do not surface." "But sir, there is no colony," Havelock said quietly. Then, under his breath, "God forgive us," a crewman muttered. "So we're here to bury a species." Havelock looked up. "No, we're here to bury a nightmare." Valen paused the playback. This wasn't war. It was extermination, but not from cruelty. "From necessity," he resumed. The submarine descended deeper, into a trench like a wound in the planet. "This is where they nest," Arden said. "And where they feed," Havelock replied. A hatch below creaked open. Water rushed in, dragging lifeless bodies upward. The sonar screamed with motion. Havelock slammed his fist down. "Detonate charges." A low hum, then silence. Then the sea itself screamed. The sonic blasts tore through the trench. Pressure crushed bone, flesh and armor alike. The abyss collapsed in on itself. When it was over, only silence remained. Arden's voice broke through the static. "Did we
do the right thing?"
Havelock didn't answer immediately, then softly, "The right thing doesn't always feel right." He looked upward through the black water. "Someone made us strong enough to stop evil. So we must." He didn't look proud. He looked haunted. The file ended. Valen stepped back, his breathing shallow. Humans had killed monsters, but their grief was heavier than victory. He realized something that chilled him more than the war itself. Humanity never celebrated survival, they mourned it. He whispered, "They don't fight to win. They fight so no one else has to." The cube pulsed, offering another entry. Valen's gaze locked on the next title. War log entry, 200 operation. The astral reckoning species, Voss Dominion. He froze. That name, his own ancestors. Valen's blood ran cold. The Voss? No, we survived. We live. But the cube did not lie. He pressed play. A battlefield filled the screen. Fleets burning. Planets breaking apart. The mighty Voss dreadnoughts, majestic, crescent-shaped, exploded like dying moons. Havelock's voice cut through the chaos. "Hold the line. Civilians are still evacuating the Europa outposts." Another officer shouted, "The Voss are charging their planet buster." A flash, white and endless. An entire Terran colony turned to dust. For a long second there was no sound. Then Havelock whispered, "They think themselves gods. We'll show them what happens to false gods." Valen's eyes widened. His ancestors had done this. His history had lied. The footage continued. Human ships swarming around a colossal Voss flagship. "Fire orbital lances," Havelock commanded. The beam sliced through the dreadnought like a blade through water. One explosion, then a chain reaction. An empire fell in an hour. A young Terran soldier asked quietly, "Sir, was this justice?" Havelock didn't look away. From the burning planet. "No. Justice would have saved those we lost. This was survival." He closed his eyes. "May, God forgive us for being so good at it." The file dimmed. Valen stood frozen. His heart pounded so hard he could hear it echo. His ancestors weren't the victims, they were the threat, and humanity had stopped them. He stared at his trembling hands. "We weren't survivors," he whispered. "We were remnants." The cube replayed Havelock's final log, a private entry. "If even one tyrant rises again," Havelock said, We doom those who can't defend themselves, so we became the monster, so that no worse could exist. Then silence. A single note appeared at the end of the file. Archive annotation. Mercy is for the innocent. We found too few. Valen sank into the nearest chair. Everything he had believed, every lecture, every text, felt hollow now. He had feared humans for their brutality. Now he feared them for their conviction. If they ever felt threatened again, would they finish what they started? He whispered, "What if their God tells them to?" The cube pulsed softly, awaiting command. New files appeared on the list: the Battle of Sinshera, the Devouring Swarm, the Mind Collectors. Each name carried the scent of extinction. He stared at the glowing red light, half in awe, half in terror. Then he spoke quietly. "Admiral Havelock, what are you, a savior? Or the hand of judgment itself?" The red glow from the archive cube painted Valen's face in trembling light. He had just learned the unthinkable, that the next war log carried the name of his own bloodline. War log entry 200. The Astral Reckoning, species Voss Dominion Commander. Admiral Nathan Havelock, his throat tightened. "The Voss can't be extinct," he whispered. "We still live. We survived." But the cube offered no comfort, only truth. He activated the AIN file. The stars exploded into motion, armadas clashed, human and Voss fleets, tearing each other apart in orbit. Valen saw the crescent shapes of ancient Voss dreadnoughts, elegant, radiant, monstrous. Now they burned. On the bridge of TDS Resolute, Havelock's voice cut through the chaos. "Hold formation. Civilians are still evacuating the outer colonies." An officer shouted, "Admiral, the Voss have activated a planet buster." A brilliant flash consumed half the screen. A Terran world vanished, not conquered. Erased. For a long moment no one spoke. Then Havelock murmured, "They think themselves gods." He looked at the glowing fragments through the viewport. "We'll show them what happens to false gods." Valen staggered back from the hologram. His people had done this? They had destroyed civilian worlds? All his life he had been told the opposite, that the Voss were noble victims. Now, history itself turned against him. He pressed play again, his breath shaking. The human fleet regrouped. "Fire orbital lances," Havelock commanded. A line of light sliced across the darkness. The beam struck the Voss dreadnought's core. In seconds, it was gone, a hole in the sky where arrogance once lived. Havelock closed his eyes as the shockwave spread. "End transmission," he said quietly. The camera shifted to a private recording. Havelock, sitting alone amid silence. "If we leave even one tyrant alive," he said, "we doom those who can't defend themselves." He looked down, voice rough with guilt. "So we became the monster, so no worse could exist." The playback ended. Valen's knees gave out. He sank to the cold floor, the truth crushed. His ancestors that the Voss Dominion had not been heroes. They were the reason humanity went to war. He touched the cube with shaking fingers. His reflection stared back, eyes filled with shame. He was alive, only because humanity had shown mercy once, just once. "We weren't survivors," he whispered. "We were spared." The cube flickered again, showing a note left by human archivists. Human archive annotation: "Mercy is for the innocent. We found too few." The line burned into Valen's mind. He had always believed humans were savages, faith-driven warmongers who destroyed for power. Now he realized the truth was far darker and far holier. They didn't kill for conquest, they killed for balance, for protection. He pressed his palms together, trying to breathe. "If they ever rise again," he whispered. "If they ever believe they're chosen." He couldn't finish the thought. The cube responded, pulsing softly. More files appeared. The Battle of Sinshera, the Fall of the Mind Collectors, the Devouring Swarm. Each name was a tombstone. Valen's voice trembled. "Why do they always mention God when they kill?" Because to humans, war was never about domination. It was about defiance and against everything that threatened creation itself. He walked in circles, trying to calm his spiraling thoughts. Humans had destroyed entire empires in the name of protection. They had annihilated monsters, and then prayed for the souls they erased. It wasn't just strategy. It was faith turned into a weapon. Valen whispered, "If righteousness can burn this bright, then who can survive its light?" He turned back to the cube, his voice barely a breath. "Admiral Havelock." "What were you?" The cube glowed faintly, almost like it heard him. Lines of text appeared. Next file available, Operation the Impossible. Return status were sealed level access required. Valen hesitated. Every file he opened tore another truth from his beliefs. And yet, something inside him, the same hunger that made humans dangerous, pushed him forward. He pressed his trembling hand to the cube. "Open it." The room darkened. New light gathered, cold and red, and the voice of humanity returned, ready to tell him what waited in the next war. Valen didn't remember standing up. His body moved on instinct, pacing the dark chamber. The cube's glow still pulsed behind him, soft yet accusing, as if the truth itself was alive. The extinction of the Voss Dominion haunted him. His own people had fallen by human hands, and yet, he couldn't hate them. That made it worse. He turned back to the cube. Next file. The holographic runes spun, forming new words. Warlog entry in our 267 operation. The impossible return enemy. The Mind Collectors. Valen frowned. He had never heard that name before. He pressed play. The scene opened inside a Terran medical frigate. Red emergency lights flashed across walls splattered with blood. Doctors shouted over comms, their voices tight with fear. Admiral Havelock entered the trauma bay. His uniform was torn, his expression carved from exhaustion. "What's the situation?" A medic, hands shaking, looked up. "Sir, the enemy, they don't just kill. They harvest." Havelock's eyes narrowed. "Harvest?" "They take memories from the dead," the medic said. "They implant them into their soldiers so they fight like humans and remember our fears." The room fell silent. Even the machines seemed afraid. A wounded Marine gasped from the bed. "They took my brother. I can hear him inside them screaming." His voice broke. "Sir, please, don't let me live like this." Havelock knelt beside him, voice soft but unyielding. "No one dies until God decides. You're still here for a reason." He stood, but his eyes betrayed him. Even Havelock was afraid. The scene shifted. The battlefield above a broken world. Floating debris. Silence. Shadows moving through the dark. The Mind Collectors appeared. Tall, thin, pale, their eyes glowing. With stolen memories, their bodies shimmered with echoes of human faces. A Terran soldier screamed as a tendril pierced his skull. The creature inhaled, stealing his memories, and then whispered in his voice, "Mom, please don't let me go." The entire squad froze. They couldn't shoot. They were listening to their dead. Havelock's voice thundered through comms. "Do not hesitate. If you value one innocent soul, and fight." The order snapped them back. The humans opened fire. Energy bursts tore through the darkness. Still, the enemy rose again. Each fallen soldier only made them stronger. Valen's pulse raced. The idea of memory as a weapon shook him. No war he'd ever studied came close to this kind of horror. Then, the scene changed again, a sealed vault. Warning lights. Havelock stood before it, palm on the console. "Open the vault of the returned." The ship's AI protested. "Warning. Divine level override required." "I know." The vault opened, revealing a black sphere pulsing with white cracks of light. Something alive. Something forbidden. Havelock stared at it. "This is the SoulNet, a weapon humanity once built and swore never to use." A nearby officer stammered, "Sir, that device, it traps souls." "I pray he forgives me," Havelock whispered, "for what I'm about to do." He activated the device. A wave of white light burst across the battlefield. It didn't destroy, it reclaimed. The stolen memories tore free from the Mind Collectors, ripping screams from their hollow throats. The monsters collapsed, empty, lifeless shells. Every stolen voice cried out one last word, "Thank you," and then silence. The light faded. Havelock stood motionless, staring into the void. "No one," he whispered, "should own another's soul." He turned off the SoulNet and looked to the heavens. Let God decide what happens next. Valen sat back, his mind spinning. This wasn't conquest. This was something deeper and spiritual. Humans fought for the soul itself. They weren't trying to survive. They were trying to protect what made survival sacred. The cube glowed softly, displaying a new note archive annotation. Humanity's mercy cannot always arrive before the monsters do, but it always arrives. Valen read the line twice, then a realization hit him, a terrifying one. Humans never started wars, but once they entered one, they finished it forever, he whispered to himself. They fight for the living and the dead. His hand hovered above the cube once more. Next file. The runes flickered, and the voice of Admiral Havelock returned. The archive chamber flickered, light trembling like breath. Valen stood motionless, eyes fixed on the pulsing cube. Every file he opened had rewritten what he believed about humans, but still, one question haunted him. What makes them fight when every other species would surrender? Play the next file. War log entry, 301 operation, never again. Threat. The devouring swarm. The cube pulsed red, almost like it hesitated. Then the recording began. A peaceful green world filled the screen. Rolling fields. Cities of glass. Children laughing under golden skies. Then, screaming. The ground cracked open. The air filled with fire. Billions of black, skittering creatures poured over the horizon. A living ocean of hunger. The devouring swarm. No mind. No mercy. Only consumption. Refugee transports fell from the sky, torn apart midair. Human soldiers fought in vain, buried beneath rivers of claws and teeth. Over the comms, someone shouted, "God, please help us." The signal dissolved into static. The view shifted to the Terran war room. Officers argued, voices trembling. "We can't evacuate the colonies. The swarm adapts to every weapon. We're out of time." And through it all, Admiral Havelock stood silent, calm in the storm. He finally spoke. "Humanity has one rule," he said. "Never again." Rafe turned to him, eyes wide. "Sir, you can't mean that." Havelock nodded slowly. "I do. Those weapons were banned for a reason." "I know," Havelock said softly. "God help me. I know." The scene cut to the battlefield. Ash fell like snow. The last human defenses stood amid burning ruins. A terrified Marine called out, "Commander, we have to fall back." Havelock walked past him, calm, deliberate. "If we run, everyone dies." He stopped beside a child, dirt-covered, shaking, clutching a broken drone. She looked up at him with hollow eyes. "Why did I survive?" she whispered. Havelock knelt beside her. "Because God isn't finished with you yet." He stood, his face lit by fire. "We hold the line." Deep beneath the battlefield, engineers opened an ancient vault. Warning lights flared across a metallic chamber. A single weapon stood at its center. Tall, silent, alive, an obelisk of light and shadow. On its surface, one warning, to be used only at the end of all hope. The chief engineer's voice broke. "Sir, this weapon will consume the planet." "I know. Then you'll die with it." Havelock looked at him. "Tired, resolute, someone once told me. Someone wants us to live." He turned to the comms. "Begin evacuation. Get every child off this world." Then he placed his hand on the control plate. The weapon awakened. The ground shook as energy surged toward the sky. A pillar of light burst upward, tearing through the clouds. The swarm screamed, millions of voices shrieking in unison. The beam pulled them upward, ripping their bodies apart, turning them to ash. The sky dimmed. The planet's sun began to die, its light devoured to fuel the weapon's hunger. Rafe watched in horror. "You've doomed yourself," he whispered. Havelock almost smiled. "Someone saves us, so we can save others." He pressed the final command. "Extract all survivors. This world is lost, but humanity is not." The battlefield fell silent. Only ashes drifted in the wind. Valen watched the footage, his hands trembling. They had sacrificed an entire world, not for victory, but to save a single ship of refugees. Tears welled in his eyes. He didn't understand how a species could love so fiercely. or suffer so willingly. They don't just fight monsters, he whispered, they fight extinction itself. The cube displayed one final annotation. Archive note: humanity stands between monsters and the innocent, so no one else has to. Phelan read it aloud, voice breaking, then silence. He realized something both beautiful and terrifying. There was no myth darker than humans, and no protectors stronger. If the universe ever needed a savior again, they would return. And if that day came, Valen thought, God help whoever stands in their way. The chamber was darker now. Only the soft red glow of the cube lit the air, pulsing like a heartbeat. Valen stood before it, smaller than he had ever felt. He had seen planets burn, oceans scream, and civilizations fall, and yet, what haunted him most wasn't humanity's power. It was their silence after every victory. They never celebrated, they mourned. He touched the cube again. Show me the next. War log entry. 35-4 Operation. The Witness of Stars Classification. Sacred event, the projection began. A Terran fleet drifted at the edge of a dying galaxy. No enemy, no war, only stillness. The ships orbited a single white dwarf star, faint, fragile, burning its last breath. Inside TDS Resolute, Admiral Havelock stood before a great window, his reflection ghostly against the light. A young officer approached. Sir, we've received no distress signal. No survivors. Why are we here? Havelock's gaze never left the star. We're not here to save anyone. Then, why come? To remember, the officer frowned. Remember what? Havelock turned to him, eyes tired but kind. Every war ends the same way. The stars watch, and the universe forgets. Someone has to remember what it cost. The crew gathered in silence. 1,000 soldiers stood in the observation halls, helmets removed, heads bowed. The light of the dying star washed over them like a benediction. A soft hymn began to play. Ancient, human, fragile. No words. Just sorrow turned into melody. For each species they had fought, for each innocent lost, the humans said nothing. They simply watched the light fade, as if keeping vigil for the souls of creation itself. Valen's throat tightened. He had never seen reverence like this. Warriors kneeling not to victory, but to memory, he whispered. They mourn the ones they destroyed, and the ones they couldn't save. The cube seemed to listen. The scene shifted again. Havelock spoke to his log recorder, voice weary, but steady. If you're hearing this, humanity is gone, but if the stars still burn, then we are not forgotten. He paused. We fought monsters not because we were pure, but because someone had to. And in that duty, we found something greater than survival, meaning. He looked out at the white dwarf. The universe is vast, empty and cruel, but every time we lit a fire in the darkness, we made it a little less alone. The star flickered, a final heartbeat. Havelock's voice softened. When our light fades, may it become part of theirs. The star collapsed inward. A ripple of white light spread across the void, like the last sigh of a dying god. No explosion, no sound, just peace. The Terran fleet drifted away, engines silent, not retreating, releasing. Valen stared at the image, tears welling in his alien eyes. For the first time, he understood what humanity's war had really been. Not destruction, remembrance. They had become witnesses, guardians of stories too painful for anyone else to carry. He whispered. They didn't fight for power. They fought to earn the right to weep. The cube dimmed. But one final note appeared. Archive annotation. Humanity believed that every soul, friend or enemy, deserved a place in the stars. They became the keepers of that light. Valen sat down slowly, feeling the weight of eons pressing upon him. He looked up at the simulated sky projected across the chamber dome, billions of stars glimmering softly. How many of those lights, he wondered, were graves, and how many were candles left behind by human hands? He whispered to himself, if they return one day, will they come as warriors or as mourners? The cube pulsed again, waiting for his command, but this time, Valen hesitated. He needed to breathe. He needed to pray. Because the next file might not show what humans did. It might show what they became. He wiped his eyes and whispered, "Play the next one." The cube glowed bright, and the chamber filled with light once more. Silence. That was all that remained. The archives ended with light, and then nothing. No more files. No more wars. Just an empty list where humanity's name once burned. Valen sat in the dark chamber, surrounded by quiet. He had watched civilizations perish. He had heard the voice of Admiral Havelock fade into eternity. And yet, the cube still pulsed. Faintly, he frowned. "Why are you still active?" No response, only a whisper of static. Faint, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. The cube projected a final message, written in a language older than any empire. Signal origin, unknown classification, forgotten year unknown, post-extinction. Valen's eyes widened. Post-extinction? He pressed his hand against the cube. Play it. At first, only darkness. Then, a flicker of blue light. A transmission began. The image was distorted, the voice fragmented, fading in and out. If anyone can hear this, this is the last beacon of humanity. The voice was calm, old but unmistakably human. We don't know how much time has passed. The stars have shifted. The maps mean nothing now, but still. We remember. The static deepened, then the voice returned. Softer, filled with faith. We left behind more than bones and ships. We left stories, written in light, buried in stars. If you found this message, then you are part of that story. Valen leaned closer, his pulse racing. The hologram flickered, and then a figure appeared, a man, wrapped in shadows and light. He wore the insignia of the Terran Defense Fleet, but his eyes were not human anymore. They glowed faintly, fragments of something divine. "We are not gone," the man said. "We became part of the stars we swore to protect." Behind him, the ruins of a ship floated, massive, silent, scarred by time. The name was still legible across its broken hull, TDS Resolute. Valen whispered, "That's impossible." The hologram continued, "You think humanity perished, but what dies when the soul remembers? When memory becomes light?" He raised a hand. The stars behind him brightened. "Every system that ever witnessed our fire carries a trace of us now. We became the witnesses of those who remain." The voice wavered, as if struggling against time. "Do not fear us. Do not worship us, just remember what we once stood for. We fought monsters, so that you could be free." The transmission began to distort again, the voice fading into static. "If the darkness ever returns, follow the light." Then silence. Valen stared at the empty air where the figure had been. His heart raced. Not from fear, but from awe. "They're alive," he whispered, "or something beyond life." He sat down slowly, trying to breathe. Humanity had transcended what every empire failed to understand. They hadn't vanished. They had ascended. The cube displayed one final annotation. Archive Addendum. Humanity achieved what no species ever dared. They turned extinction into remembrance. They became the memory of creation itself. Valen whispered, "They became light." He looked up at the stars displayed on the chamber ceiling, millions of them shimmering faintly, as if watching him back. A quiet tear rolled down his cheek. He finally understood. All along, humanity had been writing their legacy not on worlds, but in the fabric of the universe itself. Every sunrise, every signal, every heartbeat in the dark was them. The cube pulsed one last time, its voice mechanical. Ancient spoke a final line. The council demanded humanity's war logs. But what they found was faith. The light faded. The archive shut down, and the chamber filled with stillness, the kind that feels holy. Valen bowed his head, whispering a prayer not from his own people, but from theirs. "Our Father in the heavens, may our hands never forget the light." For centuries, the archive slept. The cube had gone dark. The council stopped asking questions, and the name humanity became a myth whispered by children. Only Valen still searched the void. He couldn't forget the voice he'd heard and that ancient transmission calling from beyond.
Death, follow the light,
It had said, so he did. His ship, the Scholar's Path, drifted through an uncharted sector, a graveyard of broken moons and silent debris. Sensors caught a faint pulse. A signal. Weak, rhythmic, human. Valen's heart pounded. Impossible, he whispered. There are no human beacons left. He magnified the signal. It came from deep within a nebula, where stars were born and light itself could get lost. He turned to his navigator. Set course. We're going in. The nebula swallowed them whole. Waves of color shimmered like living glass. Lightning arced through clouds of cosmic dust. And then, shadows. Shapes hidden in the mist. Colossal, motionless. Ancient. The ship's lights revealed metallic hulls stretching for miles. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Each bearing the same mark. TDS, Terran Defense System, the Lost Fleet. Valen's voice trembled. They were never destroyed. His sensors came alive. Thousands of faint energy signatures pulsing in perfect unison. Heartbeats. Machines sleeping for millennia. A voice echoed through the comms. Old, digital, familiar. Identify. Yourself, Valen froze, by the stars. You're alive, the voice paused. Then softer, almost human. Define. Alive, he swallowed. Archivist Valen of the Kalari Council. I found your signal. Static filled the channel, then a low hum like a ship taking its first breath after centuries. If you found us, then the darkness has returned. Valen stepped closer to the console. No, the wars are over. The galaxy is at peace, silence. Then the voice again, firmer now. Peace is the warning sign before the next storm. The largest ship, its hull marked TDS Resolute, began to glow. Engines long dead flickered with blue fire. One by one, the others followed, awakening like giants rising from ancient sleep. The lost fleet was waking. Valen's crew panicked. Sir, energy levels are spiking. They're powering weapons. He raised a hand. Hold your fire! They're not our enemy! The comms blared again. All units, initialize protocol Dawn reclaimed. Thousands of ships lit up, their navigation lights forming a massive circle in the nebula. A constellation shaped like a human hand reaching toward the stars. Then came the voice, clear now, powerful, unmistakable. It wasn't the AI, it was him. This is Admiral Nathan Havelock, commanding what remains of humanity. Valen nearly fell to his knees. It couldn't be. To those who still breathe among the stars, Havelock said, know this. Humanity did not die. We became the guardians of the silence you now live in. The image stabilized. Havelock's face appeared. Ageless, spectral. We slept to heal what war had broken, but the universe has stirred again. The light we left behind has been found. And that means darkness is close. He looked directly into the camera, into Valen's soul. Archivist of the Kalari, you were not meant to find us yet, but now that you have, our duty begins again. Valen whispered. You can't mean another war. The galaxy can't survive it. Havelock's voice softened. We don't fight to destroy. We fight to remind creation what it means to live. He raised his hand, and across the nebula, every Terran ship responded, forming a single symbol in the dark, a burning circle of light. We are not gods, he said. We are the memory of them. The transmission shifted. Thousands of human voices whispering prayers, old hymns echoing through the void. Wasn't an army rising, it was a resurrection. Valen felt tears blur his vision. He finally understood. The lost fleet hadn't been hidden to protect humanity. It had been hidden to protect everyone else, because if darkness ever returned, the universe would need its last shepherds. The light grew brighter, a storm of fire and faith swirling around the fleet. Havelock's final words echoed through every channel. To those who inherit the stars, remember this. The day humanity refused to die was the day creation learned how to live. The transmission ended. Silence returned. But this time, it wasn't empty, it was waiting. Valen fell to his knees. whispering through trembling lips. They're not coming back as conquerors. They're coming back as witnesses. He looked out into the nebula and among the glowing clouds. He could see it clearly now. The lost fleet awake once more, turning slowly toward the galaxy that had forgotten them, and the stars themselves seemed to whisper their home. The nebula burned like a sunrise in the void. The lost fleet stood awakened, a wall of silent giants staring into eternity. Valen's ship floated before them, a single spark before a storm of light. Every instinct told him to flee. Every prayer told him to stay. He opened a channel. "This is Archivist Valen. Please, I seek peace." For a long moment no one answered, then a voice returned. Calm, resonant, older than any star. "Peace begins with truth." It was Admiral Havelock. His image appeared across the bridge, holographic, fractured by static, yet filled with quiet strength. "You came searching for the past," he said, "but the past was only a warning." Valen's voice shook. "The Council thought you extinct. Why awaken now?" "Because judgment does not sleep forever." The stars behind him flared, one by one. Terran ships activated their light arrays, forming a single vast symbol, a ring of fire around darkness. Havelock continued. "For centuries we watched from silence. We saw peace become complacency. We saw the same arrogance return. Empires rising on the bones of the forgotten." He turned, gazing at the nebula's edge. The galaxy learned nothing. Valen swallowed hard. "What will you do?" Havelock's eyes softened. "Not destroy. Remind." The fleet began transmitting, waves of light, carrying ancient human voices across the stars. Not orders. Not threats. Memories. Every system that had forgotten humanity's sacrifice received the same vision. The wars, the prayers, the silence after victory. Children saw the truth in their sleep. Leaders heard it in the hum of their machines. Planets trembled. Not from fear, but from recognition. The truth itself had returned. Valen whispered, "You're rewriting history." Havelock replied, "No, we're restoring it." He stepped forward and, for the first time, his hologram seemed alive, breathing. Creation survives through memory. Without it, the same sins are born again. He looked directly at Valen. That is the final judgment, not death. Remembrance. Outside, the light from the Terran fleet grew unbearable. Every ship projected the same pulse, a code written not in words, but in rhythm, mercy, truth, duty. Across the galaxy, forgotten archives unlocked themselves. Worlds long buried beneath lies revealed their scars. The council chambers shook as their own. Hidden crimes came to light. The truth of every species stood exposed before the stars. Valen fell to his knees. He saw visions. Empires rising, collapsing, reborn again and again, and through it all one constant figure, humanity, standing between light and shadow. They were not conquerors. They were the memory of conscience itself. He whispered, "You're not a fleet. You're a mirror." Havelock nodded slowly. "Every world must see what it became, before it's too late." The Terran beacon's glow reached its peak. Across the universe, the pulse synchronized with the rhythm of creation itself. Every heartbeat, human or alien, matched it. For one infinite moment, everything was connected. Then the light dimmed. Havelock's voice softened. "Judgment is done. The galaxy remembers." He turned away, watching the nebula fade into silver mist. "We will return to the silence now, until we are needed again." Valen shouted, desperate, "Wait! What am I supposed to tell them?" Havelock paused. "Tell them humanity never sought to rule. We only wanted them to live." He smiled faintly. The first and last smile Valen would ever see. "Tell them the light is never gone, only waiting to be found." The hologram dissolved one by one. The Terran ships dimmed their lights, vanishing into the nebula like ghosts returning to heaven. The void grew quiet again, but this time it didn't feel empty. It felt forgiven. Valen stood alone, staring into the fading glow. He whispered to the stars, "Thank you for remembering us all, and for a heartbeat." "Just one," the stars whispered back. The nebula was silent again, The stars, still glowing, seemed to hum with distant prayer. Valen stood at the edge of the viewport, Moss alone, surrounded by eternity. The lost fleet had vanished back into the void, leaving only echoes of light. And yet, the silence no longer felt empty. It felt alive, like the universe itself was breathing again. He touched the cold glass before him. "I saw them," he whispered. "I saw the face of humanity." For the first time in his life, Valen didn't feel small before the cosmos. He felt connected to every story, every sacrifice, every spark of faith that ever burned in the dark. He opened his log recorder. Council record. Final entry. His voice trembled, but his words were steady. The humans are not extinct. They have become something beyond the limits of flesh and time. They are the echo that refuses to die. He looked out again, and in the reflection of the stars, he swore he saw faces, smiling, watching, waiting. He continued, "We once feared them because they made war sacred. We called them dangerous, unpredictable. But now I understand they fought not to dominate, but to preserve meaning. They carried faith into the stars when no one else dared." Valen closed his eyes. "I used to believe the universe was ruled by logic. Now I know it is held together by memory, and memory is another name for love." The cube at his side flickered to life one last time, its voice, faint, almost kind, and spoke softly. "Archivist Valen, final protocol engaged. Would you like to add to the human record?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. I have something to say." He placed his hand upon the cube. "The truth," he said, "must be complete." The cube pulsed, recording every word as light filled the chamber. This is not the end of their story. Humanity is not a warning. They are a reminder. When darkness rises again, it will not be gods who answer. It will be the children of light, the ones who learned mercy through pain. They taught us that faith is not a weakness, it's the courage to rise even when the stars themselves fall. He paused, voice breaking. "If they ever return, may we be worthy of their forgiveness." Outside the window, a single star flared brighter, and for a heartbeat, the light formed a shape, the outline of a human hand. Reaching outward, Valen smiled through tears. "Goodbye." "Admiral Havelock," the cube whispered its final line. Archive completed title. The light that never fades, and then it shut down. Valen stepped away from the console. He looked up at the sky, infinite, patient and holy. He whispered softly, "Maybe that's what immortality truly is. Not living forever, but being remembered forever." He turned to leave the chamber, but before the doors closed, he looked back one last time. The stars flickered, and though he could not hear it, a distant human voice seemed to echo through the ages. "We are still here." Far beyond the nebula in the endless quiet, a faint light blinked, the last human beacon. Not a distress call, not a warning, just a message. The light never fades, and the universe, vast and eternal, bowed its head in silence as if in prayer.